here at GBPensions office in William Pickering Drive in Albany, just north of Auckland, and I'm here with GBPensions Director Tony Chamberlain. Today we're going to talk about timing and time frames. There is a saying, isn't there, timing is everything. So talk to me about the timing and time frames when it comes to pension transfer options.
Well, we're really constrained by the UK companies, and the time frames really are continually being drawn out more and more. Ordinarily, perhaps in the last 5 years, we would have told a client that their transfer might take 3 to 6 months, but now we would be more comfortable saying it's going to take perhaps 6 to 9 months and going possibly on to 12 months. We have had cases take even longer, but it's not a quick process.
Look, we're here in the 21st century. You're talking about the pension transfers taking up to 6, 9, 12 months. Has technology not improved the transfer process at all?
Not at all, really. Some of the UK companies we deal with have absolutely no external email system, so we can't email them and they can't email us. Some of them will only deal with us, therefore, by post or telephone, and their telephone centres are continually blocked. Some companies will only operate between, one of them, for example, for a certain 4-hour period in the day, so it makes things really awkward for us, but it's just part of what we have to do to get the clients' monies across to New Zealand.
It sounds frustrating.
Extremely so, and so my evenings are spent quite often ringing the UK companies, trying to get through to people to transfer monies or even just provide a piece of paper.
But I think GBPensions has found a way to expedite the whole communications process, is that right?
Yeah, so as a consequence of the barriers really that we're facing, we've set up a postal drop box and telephone service in the UK so that we can hopefully get the documentation that we need sent to that place, have the paperwork then scanned to us in New Zealand rather than being posted, which could save us months potentially in the process. So that is something that we've gone to the lengths of doing in order to speed things up for our clients.
So you've got a contractor in Cambridgeshire, and presumably they're set up with the same kind of IT security protocols and everything that you have right here in
Yes,
Auckland.
so it's exactly the same. The contractors use the same systems and processes. The letterhead is addressed to the UK address, and the UK companies deal with them the same as they would be dealing with us.
So that's the time frame. The other thing that I've heard about, heard you talk about quite often, is a 4-year window, and I think that relates to when people are best to look at their pension transfer options. Is that right?
Well, there's a 4-year period where the transfer of the monies into New Zealand is exempt from New Zealand tax, and so if the individual can bring their monies into New Zealand within that 4-year period, they can avoid New Zealand tax. If they don't do it within that 4-year period, then the tax applies, but it isn't quite so bad initially, but it gets progressively worse for up to 25 years. So the key time, or the optimum period to get the monies into the country, is 4 years. Bearing in mind it could take 12 months to get the monies here in the first place.
I suppose that another factor that might potentially make people reluctant to look at the transfer is an unfavourable exchange rate. What advice would you offer someone in that position?
Well, they shouldn't really be too concerned with the exchange rate, because the schemes that we use invariably have sterling denominated funds, so the clients can bring their monies over into the New Zealand scheme but still keep their monies in sterling, and then they can then convert that sterling at a time that they want to convert the sterling, or indeed they can even have the monies paid out to them when they get to retirement age from that New Zealand scheme still in sterling. So the exchange rate really is a bit of a red herring. It shouldn't really be a consideration about bringing the monies into the country, because it can be held in sterling when it comes into the country.
Now, I know you don't give tax advice, and we'll talk about that another time, but I have heard you mention the difference between being resident in New Zealand and tax resident in New Zealand. So explain to me how this is relevant.
So the 4-year window that we've just spoken about is based from when the individual becomes tax resident in New Zealand, and now that's quite a complex issue that we don't deal with, but basically you can be tax resident in more than one country at the same time, and tax residency is not the same as residency necessarily. So we have a number of trusted individuals, international tax specialists, who can help our clients, help them to determine that, and from that we can then help them, guide them through when that 4-year period might be expiring.
So for someone who's listening to us chatting now, they've been in New Zealand as a tax resident, as far as they're aware, for longer than 4 years, and they're thinking, oh, perhaps there isn't any point looking at my pension transfer options. What would you say to that person?
Well, there's still a good reason to transfer the monies in, because the longer they leave it past that 4-year period, the greater the potential tax liability will be. But in some cases, individuals don't want to do that because there is that liability, but there is still a good reason to do it, even though they've gone past that 4-year period.
And I guess you don't know unless you ask the question.
No, that's right, we don't.
Excellent. Tony, thank you.
Thank you.